ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती नामिने। श्रीवार्षभानवी देवी दयिताय कृपाब्धये कृष्ण संबंध विज्ञानदायिने प्रभवे नमः। माधुर्योज्वल प्रेमाढ्य श्रीरूपानुगभक्तिदा श्री गौरकरुणा शक्ति विग्रहाय नमोस्तुते। नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्तये दीनतारिणे रूपानुगविरुद्धाप सिद्धांतध्वान्तहारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Today is the most auspicious disappearance day of the Guru of Srila Prabhupada. His name is Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur. Today is his disappearance day. On the occasion of this disappearance day, I'll speak something about the final days of his manifest pastimes in this world. He passed away on December 31st, 1936. That's a long time, almost 90 years, 85 years before he passed away. He is the Guru of Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, and his life was fully dedicated completely for service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching mission. Extraordinary devotee, and his life is extraordinary dedication for this single purpose of preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya all over the world. So here is a description of the final days to understand the context in which we observe this particular occasion annually as the Tirobhav Tithi of the great Acharya. In October, this is of 1936, Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur went to Jagannath Puri, and there he exhibited his pastime of illness for some time. The Acharyas actually are completely detached from their body. At the same time, they use their body for Krishna service. This is called Yukta Vairagya. That is, a devotee is detached from everything material. At the same time, a devotee utilizes all material things, including the material body, in the devotional service of Krishna. What is the significance of this? The understanding is that Krishna has so many energies, of which we belong to one category of Krishna's energy called the marginal energy as spirit soul. And Krishna has his internal potency, which is his Yoga Maya. For his own purposes, he utilizes that internal energy, which is completely spiritual. And he has got his external energy, which is the material energy, meant for the purpose of the conditioned souls in this material world. So, in Yukta Vairagya, we understand we are not the body, so we are detached from the body. That means we engage in devotional service regardless of the condition of the body. And we can see in the lives of great acharyas, pure devotees, that even when they are their body is sick, or they have they got some illness, they don't stop their devotional service. They continue their devotional service all through their life under different circumstances. Whether there are difficulties externally or there is some illness in the body, their dedication and devotion to the service of the Supreme Lord Krishna is unchanged, unaffected. So, of course, we cannot imitate such great acharyas, but we can at least attempt to be detached from the body by way of avoiding sense gratification. And also, when we fall sick, we do not stop devotional service. At least we can chant whatever seva we can do under the circumstances. We continue to do some service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. So therefore it is described here, he exhibited his pastime of illness for some time. It's actually Leela. It's described as Leela. That means the pure devotees, the acharyas, are not having any inclination or interest in sense gratification. Generally, the ordinary people in this world, they are simply engaged in different activities so that they can gratify their senses. But the acharya simply engages in devotional service simply for the sake of carrying on the mission of the Supreme Lord in this world, to preach Krishna consciousness to the ignorant mass of people, to deliver them from suffering in this material world, out of compassion for the suffering souls. Then it is described in the Chatak Parvat in Jagannath Puri, which is considered to be non-different than Giri Govardhan. Jagannath Puri is the place of the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For about 500 years back, Lord Chaitanya, after accepting sannyas, made his headquarters at Jagannath Puri, and he once mistook a small hillock in Jagannath Puri to be Giri Govardhan Hill. The Govardhan Hill is in Vrindavan, and that Govardhan Hill was lifted by Krishna on his little left finger in order to protect the Brajavasis against the torrential rain sent by Indra. And that's why that Govardhan Hill is very special. It was lifted by the Amrita Hasta of Krishna himself. So also the Govardhan Hill is considered to be non-different from Krishna. So devotees worship the Govardhan Hill, devotees circumambulate the Govardhan Hill, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, once he performed this pastime of worshipping this Chatak Parvat, this small hillock in Jagannath Puri, considering it to be Giri Govardhan. Therefore, the importance or the significance of this hillock in Jagannath Puri. Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur observed Madhvacharya's appearance day celebration and chanted verses specified for such occasions from the writings of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Our principal acharyas, who are direct disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, are the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Among them, Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami are most prominent. Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur held a similar festival for his spiritual master Srila Gaur Kishodas Babaji Maharaj. He gave many instructions in the final days. He instructed his disciples and followers, you all take to sincere Hari Bhajan. There are not many more days. So he indicated that these are the final days of his presence in this world as the Guru, as the preacher. He gave lectures in Puri for about a month and a half, and then on December 6th, he left Puri for Calcutta. At the Puri station, those days, he used to travel by train from Puri to Calcutta. So at the Puri station, he was paid respect by many distinguished persons, especially due to their appreciation of his monumental activities of preaching Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message in India as well as abroad. Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur was preaching at the most difficult time in Indian history. That is, at the time when there was a big freedom struggle going on. Indians, led by many patriots and many great freedom fighters, they were engaged in the civil disobedience movement organized by Gandhiji, and they were also protesting against the British rule. So at such a time, Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur was preaching Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message, instructing people that the real solution to life's problems is not just going to be solved. Life's problems are not going to be solved simply by getting some political freedom. The real suffering is due to material bondage. So we should take to Krishna consciousness or devotional service and become liberated from this material bondage by devotional service. That was what he was preaching. And not many people would understand him, but he was a tireless preacher. And he wrote a lot of books. He performed Sankirtana. He sent his disciples and followers to distribute literature, to speak about Krishna consciousness, to impress upon the people the real necessity of life, of the human form of life, is to actually perform this devotional service to the Supreme Lord and become completely liberated from material bondage. See, simply by getting political freedom, we are not going to get freedom from material bondage. This was a very important lesson that was taught by Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur, especially at the time of the freedom struggle. He established this institution called Gaudiya Math in 1918, and he passed away in 1936. So just 18 years, but he was vigorously preaching, and he established 64 branches of the institution to preach Krishna consciousness called Gaudiya Math all over the country, out of which 3 were established outside the country. Out of the 64 branches, 3 were established, one in Rangoon, one in London, and one in Germany. So his vision was the vision set forth by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prithvi te achi yata nagaradi grama sarvatra prachara hoive morana. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this vision to his followers because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu traveled all over India and established this Sankirtan movement, inaugurated the Sankirtan movement of chanting Hare Krishna, hearing the words of the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam from realized souls, from pure devotees, and engaging in the worship of Krishna as the main activity of a human being for the sake of achieving the ultimate goal of life, that is God realization, and thereby automatically becoming freed from material bondage and all this suffering in this material world. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took compassion upon the suffering souls and established the Sankirtan movement. And his followers later on did perform Sankirtana, preach the message of Chaitanya by writing books, by giving discourses, by performing Sankirtana. But not many people were following or were practicing Krishna consciousness the way Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught. So especially Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur's father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he worked very hard to spread this message among the intelligent class of people, among the intellectuals, among the pious people, among those who are religiously inclined, among all classes of people, without discrimination. He preached Krishna consciousness vigorously, and he wrote several books explaining the philosophy of Krishna consciousness as taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not write books. It is the direct disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the 6 Goswamis, who extensively wrote books explaining the philosophy. But those books were written mainly in Sanskrit, and the knowledge was concealed in these words of the Goswamis who wrote in Sanskrit. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote in simple Bengali, the local language in Bengal, and also wrote in English. He published a magazine. He wrote several books explaining the philosophy in simple words. And he distributed this literature. His vision was to spread the message of Lord Chaitanya all over the world. So he sent copies of a small booklet called Lord Chaitanya, his Life and Precepts. He sent this booklet to all the major universities all over the world with the aim of establishing Krishna consciousness worldwide. Then Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur, whose disappearance day we are observing today, he actually carried forward the vision of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur by establishing this Gaudiya Math in so many places all over the country, with dedicated devotees, disciples engaged in preaching, mission. So that's why he had so many followers who paid respects to him when he was leaving Puri and going to Calcutta. They all were appreciative of his monumental activities of preaching Krishna consciousness all over the country, and especially even outside the country in foreign countries. So along the route there was a stop in Cuttack. Cuttack is a station en route from Puri to Calcutta. So he was met by Professor Sanyal and others, followers. They were all very intelligent persons who understood the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as preached by Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur. And in Calcutta, many devotees greeted him at Howrah station and brought him to Gaudiya Math at Bagh Bazaar. This Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Math was the first marble temple built single-handedly by Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur, with the aim of establishing firmly the Krishna consciousness movement among the people especially in the cities. The crown jewel of the British Empire was Calcutta, and in Calcutta Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur established this Bagh Bazaar Gaudiya Math in the heart of the busy city. There he gave a lecture which lasted over an hour, and he covered many profound topics. He spoke of the importance of good association. He spoke of the mystery of Lord Chaitanya's madness and separation in Puri during the last days in Gambhira, in the association of Srila Swarup Damodar and Sri Ramanandaraya. These confidential subjects are explained best by the acharyas, by the pure devotees, of what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught by his own activities. We have to hear this from the lips of great acharyas. We should not try to understand it by our own intelligence. We mostly misunderstand this. Also, Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur spoke of the Guru's vision of seeing his Guru everywhere. Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur also discussed the danger of discussing other topics, mundane topics, after having admitted the topics of Supreme Lord as superior. He discussed the necessity of being careful about offenses to Vaishnavas. That means one should be very careful in devotional service to avoid offense to Vaishnavas. He also described particularly the dangers of the creepers of adoration, profit and distinction. La Puja Pratishtha. When we are cultivating devotional service, we should be careful not to become carried away by some material profit in the course of doing our devotional service, or becoming very much anxious to receive respect from others, or to be considered as a very distinguished devotee. These are all obstacles on the path of progress and devotional, pure devotional service. He quoted from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Sharanagati from Dainya, humility section. And in this way he instructed in several topics his disciples and followers towards his end of his pastimes. He instructed particularly, look within, amend yourself rather than pry into the frailties of others. It's a very important instruction for us. In this world of Maya, averse to the Lord, full of trials and tribulations, only patience, humility and respect for others are our friends for Hari Bhajana. So very important instructions he has given. So nice. The Supreme Lord, Gaura Sundara, puts his devotees in various difficulties and association to test their patience and strength of mind. Success depends on their good fortune. Like this, he has given his last instructions, very, very instructive. He particularly instructed us that one should be very careful to maintain a humble attitude. Only then one can properly execute devotional service, overcoming the obstacles which we generally face in this material world. Compassionately, he was urging everyone to give up pride and envy and simply immerse themselves in spreading the glories of the Supreme Lord. His mission had become an immense vehicle for this. He didn't want it to fail. He quoted multiple sources to establish the point of single-minded devotion to Krishna. This is exactly what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. So single-pointed attention, with single-pointed attention, we should establish devotional service to Krishna. Finally, he said, we are all sojourners on the path of death. Everyone has to die. Therefore, in this state of life, whether one is male or female, high or low, king or subject, rich or poor, learned or foolish, everyone can make this very rare human form of life successful by becoming a servant of the eternally pure, completely blissful Sri Hari. Even in this conditioned life, one can become liberated simply by following the instructions of the Acharya and engaging in devotional service with single-minded devotion to Krishna. So, there are a lot of instructions that he has given. On the morning of December 31st, 1936, Srila Bhakti Siddhant Sarasvati Thakur requested Sripad B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, one of his disciples, to sing Sri Rupa Manjari by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. And he requested another disciple to sing the Shikshashtaka. In the forenoon, he requested the editor of Gaudiya magazine to see to it that the Vaishnava Manjusha would be compiled and published. The last book he wanted to be published. In his last days, he had specifically requested that his disciples form a governing body commission of 10 or 12 devotees to manage the society's affairs. At last, he announced, "Please accept my blessings to you all, present and absent. Please bear in mind, our sole duty and religion is to spread and propagate service to the Lord and His devotees." Thus the great Acharya, the Simha Guru, the uncompromising Sadhu, the Vaikuntha man, as Srila Prabhupada described him, the tireless preacher of the pure teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, left this material world uttering the name of Krishna at about 5:30 a.m. on Thursday, January 1st, 1937, and entered the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, having firmly established the foundation of a spiritual movement which will be carried around the world by his pure servant, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. So after his disappearance, after his passing away, his transcendental body was worshipped by his disciples and followers. His spiritual body was brought before the deities and appropriate worship and arati was performed. Actually, his body was taken from Calcutta to Navadvip by train, and from Krishnanagar his body was moved by motor car to the place where he established the temple at birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, and there he had performed also a intense bhajana of chanting 1 billion names of Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra. For about 9 years, every day he would chant 3 lakh names of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So, the work on the Samadhi was immediately begun by sannyasis, babajis, brahmacharis, grihasthas, vanaprasthas, who had all taken shelter at his lotus feet. At the end of the night, Samadhi mantras were written on his body according to the directions of the Samskara Deepika by Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami. His spiritual body was then brought to the Samadhi site, and then the Samadhi was prepared. and everyone offered prayers, and in this way the Acharya's son, as he was called by his father Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, passed from earthly vision and entered the eternal pastimes of the Lord. Hare Krishna.